وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ. Allahu Akbar. The ayah is amazing because it takes you through these stations, okay? And mentions things in such a way as if it is all connected. And you will see the benefits and the fruits of it. First of all, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ. Sulayman has not disbelieved. Who said anything about kufr? Did anyone say something about kufr? وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ. Yes, they practically accused him of kufr. You will find this before that. You will find this in the Bible as well. So in 1 Kings, you will find that King Solomon loved many foreign women. And he went after many of the women that God, his Lord, forbade for him and for Bani Israel, because they will lead them away from God. But Sulayman, according to them, loved many of these women, and he had 700 wives. Allahu Akbar. 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. Ya Allah. Is that even humanly possible? Even in Jannah, there's no talk about 1,000 wives. Okay? But this is what it mentions. And those wives and his love for them led him away from God. So that his heart was then away from God towards their gods. And God became angry with him. And he was not like his father David. His heart was away from God. The Bible mentions he went away from God. He went towards those gods. What is this? This is kufr. This is disbelief. And thus Allah punished him according to them. Allah punished him by the division of his kingdom. And how eventually his son would have part of the kingdom, but the kingdom was divided, as we know in history. That was part of the punishment of Allah for him, according to the Bible. The Quran clarifies, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ. Sulayman is exonerated of all of this garbage. This is corruption at its best. We absolve the prophets of Allah, peace be upon them all, of such acts. And the Quran says, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ. Sulayman did not disbelieve. Furthermore, the crux of the ayah is focusing on sihr, it's focusing on magic. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. So the ayah is concentrating on the magic, the lies that the demons, the shayateen, the demons, okay, the kuffar of the jinn spread in the name of Sulayman alayhi salam. So we also understand from وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا, that Sulayman did not disbelieve by practicing magic. Your accusation that he did magic and thus committed kufr is unacceptable. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. The shayateen are the ones who disbelieved through the magic that they were doing. Sulayman did not. And therefore, this ayah and this particular part, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ, even though it's not necessarily talking about kufr, it's talking about magic, is connecting, making the connection between magic and kufr. And thus, this ayah is the cornerstone evidence for anyone who wants to say that practicing magic, or learning it for that matter, is kufr. And many of the scholars of Islam who maintained that learning magic and practicing it is kufr will depend on this ayah and use this ayah as evidence. And this is why Al-Imam al-Bukhari mentions it first when he talks about magic in his Sahih. And Ibn Hajar connects that and deduces from that Al-Bukhari is of that opinion, that learning magic and practicing it is kufr. On the other hand, there is some difference of opinion between scholars. Is learning magic and practicing it kufr or not? Interestingly, depending on the sources you consult, some will maintain that the majority of scholars say that it is not kufr. One of them that says that is Al-Imam al-Nawawi. Okay, and he is referring to the Shafi'i opinion, whereby Al-Imam al-Shafi'i said, we would ask the magician, describe this magic that you are doing, and if we find things that we can ascribe to kufr, to disbelief, then we will say that this is kufr. Meaning to say that not all magic is kufr. Okay? So Imam al-Nawawi mentions this, and other scholars, that the majority say that. And that the Hanafis, the Shafi'is, and the Hanbalis give that opinion, a nuanced opinion, that it is not all kufr, it depends on what is being done there. Al-Imam Malik and Al-Malikiyah were very harsh against the issue of magic. So the opinion of Imam Malik was that any or all magic is kufr, it is disbelief. Because they view that the only way to do real magic is by magnifying someone other than Allah, namely the shayateen. And it seems, wallahu a'lam, they are referring to the worst kind of magic, what we call black magic, in which cannot be practiced except by subjecting oneself, wal-'iyadu billah, to the shayateen, to the devils. That's what we're talking about when we talk about black magic. Other types of magic, where they talk about mixing certain things and substances and saying certain things at certain times, this seems to be on a lower level. But if you talk about that worst kind of magic, this is the way the Malikis looked at it, that necessarily you have to say and do things, God forbid, that are kufr. How do you subject yourself to the shayateen? Wal-'iyadu billah. You have to do kufr. And they will ask you to do things that are blatant kufr, actions that are kufr, such as disrespecting the Quran, and things that I don't want to even mention, that are the worst when it comes to how one may treat the Quran. So they would get people to do things like this in order to practice that kind of magic. So that's why the Malikis were very harsh, and they said that it is kufr. And they are not the only ones. So Ibn Qudama is a Hanbali, but he also finds that doing magic is kufr, and he bases it on this ayah, as we said before. Most of them will base it on this ayah. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ. وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. Sulayman did not disbelieve by practicing magic. He did not practice magic. Even though, subhanallah, this is what a lot of the Jews taught about Sulayman alayhi salam. They accused him of being a magician. And indeed, if you look at some of the research and works that have been written about the way that perception was developed over time, it is very interesting. In the beginning, he was just looked at as a king. King Sulayman, of course we know he was a king. He was a king and a prophet. But one author traces that development from King Solomon to Solomon the exorcist. What is the exorcist? The one who kicks out the demons, right? The shayateen from people. Then from exorcist to astrologer. Astrology, the science of the stars and predicting the future through the stars and doing stuff like that. And eventually to magician. Eventually King Solomon the magician. So you will find these titles. King Solomon the Magus, meaning the ultimate magician. And indeed, you will trace that back to some of the sources of what the Jews used to write about Sulayman alayhi salam back to the 2nd and 3rd century CE. So some 3 to 4 centuries before the time of Islam, before the advent of Islam. How did this all develop? Yes, with time. Because of these books. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانُ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. Because of these books, it started spreading that this is the work of Sulayman, the magician. And this spread amongst the Jews, and the Jews taught it to people, and then it was taken by the Christians. So the Christian astrologers and magicians attributed it to Sulayman, and you have books. And I will not say if you want to go after it, because you should never go after it. You have books attributed to Sulayman the magician, the magic of Sulayman. Advice that he is giving to his son Rahba'am. And then it's a handbook. It's a handbook of magic attributed to Sulayman alayhi salam. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانُ. He didn't disbelieve as you accused him, and he didn't disbelieve by practicing magic. This is the work of the shayateen. So we may very well trace these sources and these lies about Sulayman being a magician all the way back to what Allah is telling us in this ayah. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. Back to the lies of the shayateen at his time, alayhi salam, right after he died. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانُ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا.